Okay. I'm Brian Lensink. I'm the president of the club. And we usually start each of our meetings with a short business session. It's going to be really short today. We found out on Thursday that the demonstrator who was going to be here couldn't make it. So we've been scrambling, and I've been particularly scrambling because I'm going to be the one doing the demo. So you'll be able to get really sick of me today. To start out, I'd like to thank Mike. Is it Lensink? Lensink for bringing all the stuff over today. We always are challenged to have a truck that can bring our stuff over. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Diane. Diane? Thank you. Diane prepared 19 thank you letters or cards, and I think they're made. Do you make the cards, Diane?
Yeah.
Homemade cards, and out to the various vendors who've been helping us out. And we've never done that before, so thank you very much. The treasurer, Rich Slosky, is on his way to, he's not here though. And he usually gives a short treasurer's report. The first thing is we are spending right on budget, and we're solid and good. If you'd like to see the budget for next year, it's on the website in the members only section, and it describes what our planned spending is for the upcoming year. And it's about exactly the same as last year. However, we do anticipate this year to have some national experts come in and do some demos for us, probably in November and February. That's not all tied down yet, but we're at least back in having people come and share their skills with us. We also have a couple of new members. David Cocker.
Yeah.
David, welcome. Where are you from, David?
Manchester, Northwest England.
I'm sorry.
Northwest England.
Manchester, England.
Manchester, England.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. I don't know if we had anybody else from England before. So
I won't come in every week from that.
the airlines would really love you if you did. Jim Binder, another new member. He's not here in person. How about on Zoom? Anyway, welcome, Jim. Also, we've had skill builders class, the one for, well, let me have John Brow. John, can you just give a brief update on the classes?
Sure, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, skill building program at the Thunder Learning Center has been going extremely well. We just finished the first cycle of 2 groups, so that's 12 that have gone through the program. We had an add-on class with 7 sign up that started in April, and they're in progress. Excuse me a second. Excuse me. And then starting June 11th, we have 5 people that will be going through a summertime program. We also have 4 people who are snowbirds who have expressed interest in. So we'll have another program starting in the fall. But the classes have been going extremely well. Our students have been doing some really good work, and the feedback's been very good. Thank you to Lash LaRue, Cal Vanderpoy, and Vince for their help as the instructors. I think it's just made the program move very, very well. Some of the feedback from the students is that they'd like to see the program condensed a little bit. Doing a class a month has been a little too long, so starting in the fall, We're going to work to consolidate that down. We're also looking at some add-on programs because the participants in skill building have been saying, what next? So watch for more information in the newsletter about that. We also have some specialty classes or programs that are going to come up over the course of summer. We're finalizing dates on one that'll be tied to empty bowls, one that'll be tied to the Beads of Courage Challenge. And then we're hoping in October to have a introduction to the skew class. That'll be a good focus for us. And if I can ever strong arm Brian Lensink, we'll get the segmented turning class scheduled as well. But thank you to everybody for your participation and for your support for the program. Thank you.
Seeing we had to put a demo together in a rather rapid fashion, I was supposed to demo, I think in September, on basket illusion technique that I particularly been busy with the last couple of months. And so I've been working on some pieces that include basket of illusion, but not having the whole piece being basket illusion. Do I still need to have this?
Yes, you're not hooked up yet.
Okay. So I decided to go ahead and show the basic techniques of basket illusion through the making of a piece like this. Here, I just included the technique in a piece rather than having the whole thing look like a basket. And I call this Blue Man's Beanie. And I tried to kind of make it look like a skull cap or a beanie, and use the basket illusion technique on the top, but not throughout the whole piece. I showed it on the Segmented Woodturners website, and I got a couple of comments. Fortunately, they were all good. But somebody said, can you take the top off? Well, I originally made this as a hollow form, not in the traditional hollow form sense, in that I didn't have to use a hollowing system because it's segmented and put together in halves. But they also said, can you do it so the top comes off? Well, I didn't see why I couldn't. So in the making of this, I first of all made it using segmented wood turning. So the bottom was turned with it chucked here. And the top, I had another chuck making the top part. And some of the things that I wanted to do were to make it look, and I'm going to bring it over here and see if I can show that any better. Oh, great. I wanted to undercut the top so that it looked like it was sitting on the blue part. And like it was just a beanie. So with this one, I could undercut it. And I also could use the basket illusion pens to paint the inside groove brown. And I could stain the bottom separately. So I did this piece, beaded it, painted the inside edge, and then on this side, I went ahead and dyed it blue, and then I glued the two halves together afterwards. But it was a little tricky because I wanted to make sure that I had an edge that was even all the way around, and it those two halves would slip a little bit. So I had to put some little wedges in there when I was gluing to make sure that it didn't slip on me, because I couldn't see the glue joint on the inside. Instead of using my typical tight bond glue, I also use tight bond transparent, I think translucent, so that if I had a little bit of squeeze out in there, I was hoping you wouldn't see it. But I don't believe I had any squeeze out. So I may have in the inside, but not on the outside. So anyway, that's kind of the process of making this. So now I have the second, and then after I had it all done sitting like this, I said, I don't want it to sit like that. I want it to sit like this. So I went ahead and took off the bottom and then just put in I put it in a vacuum chuck just to hold it here, but not to use the vacuum on it. And then I just twisted it a little bit and put a different bottom on it. So now the piece fits a little to one side. So I thought that was kind of unique. So now I thought maybe I could make kind of a series of these with different dies and different patterns. So one of the people on the internet said, Pete Markin, I think it was, said, can you make it with the lid that comes off? So that's what I've done here. And the technique actually has helped me a little bit, because come back over this way. Instead of just, can you do that? Oh, there we go. Instead of just undercutting the lid, I could actually put a typical lid mortise in here and tenon, so that when I put the two together, they don't slip. And so that's gonna, well, the lesson was that if I do that in the future, no matter what kind I'm gonna make, I won't have to worry about gluing it. However, this one I'm not gonna glue. So I had to undercut still the edge where it goes together. Does that make sense? Okay. So now I've got a bottom and I've got a top. Let me put this together real quick. And we'll put this guy in here. Up through here. Yep. Okay. Now I wanted to make it round. So I don't know if you've worked on pieces that you try to make round. One of the ways that you can do that is you can determine the size that you want and make a little jig that you can put over it, and you can kind of keep turning until it basically fits into that circle. And I also didn't want this to be half of it. I wanted it to be smaller. So I put an extra ring on here so that it was not the center, and I took that amount off of this half. And then I put another ring on in order to make this little tenon here that makes it into a lid. On the inside, I also would cut little things that you can just stick in there and see when you're round. And it's really a helpful process. And then I had to just make sure that my wall thickness was sufficient so that when I ultimately take this off, I've got enough wall thickness to put the foot off center. So there's a lot of things to kind of remember as you're turning. So now I've got my basic vessel. And now I come into the actual demo, which is doing the basket illusion technique on the top. So I have a hole here, so that's going to help me center this whole thing. And my bowl was running true on the bottom, so it fits on there nice and snug. So I can bring that up. And I've got a good solid surface now that I can go ahead and bead. And it's important, and I haven't checked it on this lathe yet, but I need to make sure that it's really running true, because when you beat it, if you're a little off wobble, you're not going to have nice round beads on the piece. So once you get this to the surface that you want it, you're ready to bead. Now, one of the other things that I just came across, because I always find new little adventures when I'm doing one of these things. Before I start doing this at all, I have to know the size of it. So unlike one of these rulers, these good old tapes from sewing work really well to determine how much surface I have here. And I'm not gonna bead all the way to the hole. I'm gonna leave a little bit of flat area up there. So this came out to 5.5 inches. This particular piece was beaded with a 1/8 inch beading tool. Okay, so if I used a 1/8 inch beading tool, I learned that it would be 44 beads. Okay, but the problem that I'm having is that when I planned the top, I was planning it for one this size. So here's my design for the top. Okay. And this only has 29 beads, but I need 44 if it's 1/8. So I can redesign it, but I can't do that by Saturday when I'm doing a demo. So
Ryan, show me, hold that up to me, so people on Zoom can see. Like,
Uh-huh.
stay over there. There you go. Just like you see the design on TV. Okay.
yeah, I can also put it here, and that would be, so, yeah.
Does the bead have to be an eighth? Are there other beading?
Oh, yeah, there's lots of different size beading tools. In fact, I usually do the outside bead with a 3/16 inch beading tool. And I get those from D-Way tools. I find them to be the best beading tool that I've ever used. And the 1/8, there's a little groove in here, and that's a 1/8 inch beading tool. And this one is 3/16. Well, I did a little calculation this morning. Math is not my specialty, but I found that in 5.5 inches, I could get 29 beads with a 3/16 inch beading tool. Now the design's going to look a touch different because the beads are going to be a little bit larger and wider, but it's going to be basically the same thing. And 29 is what I had on that one. So if I use the 3/16" beading tool, I'm going to be okay on this piece. Let me also just pass this around. Everybody is usually curious as to what you use when you're doing some of these things. So let me first talk a little bit more about the design. How do you come up with that? Well, it's I have a package of, let's see if I can show this. Can you switch back to the overhead? I sit and watch the TV series, and I also doodle at the same time. So I have all kinds of these that I've come up with. When I first started it, I would do them all by hand like this with just a pencil, and I would think about the colors as I was going along. And then that got difficult and it took a long time. So I started, I went ahead and got Adobe Illustrator. And Adobe Illustrator allows me, the only thing I know how to do on Adobe Illustrator is make a graph. And that's all I use it for. But it allows you to go ahead and fill in all the lines. You can change the color. There's just a lot of things you can do. And there's probably a lot more things that you can do than what I know how to do. But these are all different designs that I've just played with, and they end up to be in various pieces that I've done. Now, there's some inexpensive ways to get the graph paper. And one of them is listed here, is you go to the web and you go to blackcatsystems.com, you can buy a thing called Graph Paper Maker. And it allows you to just print off all different kinds of graphs, different sizes, and you put in how many spokes you want. For instance, on this one, the line's going out from the center, there's 60 of them. And because I had measured the top of that, and I wanted 1/8" beads, I knew I had to have 29 going down the side. So I can make a graph that has 29 circles and 60 lines. And I can play with that myself and start coming up with designs. It also comes in handy with indexing, which is what you have to do to get those lines onto that piece. And so I think you can use it for free. It has a big watermark on it when they use it for free, but for 20 bucks, you can buy it for life. And I get lots of different ones and put them on wood discs, just small, thin plywood or whatever you have around. And I can.
Stand in front of him. And,
Okay.
you can see it.
It's tricky getting to know.
Where did you get that?
I bought that software called
On the first line.
Graph Paper Maker, and you can make polar graphs, which are circular graphs, or you can make regular graphs, and you can control the size and the lines. And then I just print them out on my printer and glue them onto a wooden disc. So it's an inexpensive way to have all different kinds of wheels based on how many lines you have in the thing that you designed. Okay? You can also buy a wheel. And this one I bought from Chef Works, I think, or Chefware Kits. They sell pepper and salt mills and all kinds of things, but they also sell the index wheel. And I'm going to go over how you use this thing. All of these, this has all kinds of different size index separations. But they're most of them are even numbered. And sometimes your design, after you come out, you count them up and they're 15 or 33. Well, you can't use this wheel. So then I go and just print one out, and put it on a piece of wood. Okay? Now, the first thing you have to do, however, is bead this. So what I'm going to be doing first here is beading. Let me when you're beading, let's see, what's the best way to, you want to get your tool rest up close to the piece, and you want it a little bit below center. And I made that big decision to use the 3/8, and I better make darn 3/16, I mean. However, they make them in 3/8 too. They make them in a quarter, and they make a lot of different tools. And they're really wonderful because you can put little beads on a piece of spindle work real quick. You don't have to learn how to use a skew or anything. And they really make nice beads. When you're beading this tool, let's see. There we go. It's angled here, and you hold the tool like this, so that this angle is kind of even with the wood. And I wish I didn't bring my tool rest. I'm going to just try something here. This tool rest is robust, large. I use the small one, which is kind of straight. This one doesn't allow me to hold this tool down like this. So that, I just noticed that. So one thing I'm going to try is I'm going to just turn around and go like this, if I can get it close enough to the wood, which I'm not sure I can. No, we're going to do it the other way.
Ryan, can you just do a couple of beads off the very end of that?
Can I what?
Can you just do a couple of beads at a time and just use the very end of your tool rest and use it the regular way?
Well, that's possible. Pretty good, yeah. Yes, thank you. That's one thing about wood turning. There's a way to do almost anything you want to do. Okay, what I'm going to do is bead a few beads, and then I'm going to finish my 29, and you guys can listen to somebody else talk about one of the many nice pieces that are out here in a show and tell. I know the one thing I hate about video and watching some of these that don't have fast speeds on them is watching somebody make 29 beads, you really get bored. So I won't put you through that, but I'll be busy over here doing it because this is going to be my finished piece. It's not a demo piece that I scrap. At least I sure hope not. So the thing about beading,
Didn't they tell you that when you do a demonstration, the keys have to go to the club so they can auction it off?
okay. What I find best is to have as fast a speed as I can. How do you do this? RPMs up, there we go. Well, I'm at 1300 right now, so we're going to see how that works. Now, another little trick that I learned was to get a pencil and come over on your piece and just put a little pencil mark all over the whole thing. I'm sorry? Okay, thank you. Now, I'm going to start here at the end. When I'm doing a vessel, I usually start at the top and go all the way down to the bottom. And if there's any kind of misalignment of beads along the way, I can just shift where my bottom is going to be a little bit. On this, it's just the opposite. I want to make sure I have a full bead right here at this end. So I'm going to go this way, and then I can stop wherever I want. And I also made my design so that I have some solid pieces in the middle. So if it doesn't come out to exactly 29, I can make an adjustment pretty easy, okay? If you run your design right up and then you're just a little bit off on your beading, then you're unhappy with yourself. So you come in, and it really helps to have nice light. Can you see that? Yeah, good. Okay. And you just kind of wiggle the beading tool. And if you notice, yeah, there's a little black line in the middle of that bead. That means it's not totally round yet, okay? And that's why I put the pencil mark on there, because I can just keep beading that. Until that line disappears, okay? Now, you can move over to the next one. Now, what I do in order to try to get as even a bead count as I can, is I come over and do you see that little line that I made? Yeah, there's a little white line right here. Well, I'm gonna put one side of my beading tool in that line, and I'm gonna make another one and another one. Now I know exactly where my 3/16 inch beads are going to be going. So now I can go to the next one here. And wiggle it around. I think I'm rid of that black line, but sometimes I rock back and forth. And then at the end, I kind of go like this a little bit just to make sure I'm rounding the top of that bead. if you don't have a perfectly round bead, you probably won't see it at the end unless it's really off. But you will also have a little bit more trouble burning your lines into your piece because you have to burn now in the valleys of these beads. And then you have to put an index wheel on here so that you've got lines to burn with a wood burner. And if that wood burner doesn't fit right on that bead, then you got a little spot that isn't black. Again, small errors are lost in the design, but so here, I must have a little low spot right here where it's not perfectly round. And that is the only place on here that exists. I also noticed that on this first bead, this piece must not have been exactly square, or I wasn't with my beading tool, because I got a little bit of a ridge right along here, but not on the whole thing, just in a few places. So I can either, what I'm going to choose to do is not go back and try to make it deeper. It's just a very small ridge, so I'll come back and sand it, and I'll be able to sand that away. Okay? So I'm going to just do a couple more beads, and then I'm trying to get rid of that last black mark that was on these first two beads. Now we'll go to the next one. Little things, it really makes a nice fine cut, which is great because you then have a nice smooth surface to work with, and you really hardly have to do any more sanding. Now, you got to keep moving your tool rest so that you can introduce the tool exactly on the curved surface. It's going to change a little bit with each bead. So
Is it tricky to sharpen?
to sharpen this?
Yeah.
Not at all. When you bring a smock, you should probably wear it. You don't have to sharpen them very often. They don't get dull very quick. But to freshen them up, here. Oh, there it is. But one of these just works great. Okay. You just, all you really have to do is kind of put it on there so that it's a little bit concave, because on my wheel, I set my wheel for 15 degrees, and I have a platform that I can click it into 15 degrees. And then I just go back and forth 1 or 2 times on the wheel, and that sharpens it up. But in between, I can put this on here and just do a couple of runs that it's back to a really nice sharp end.
For the people at home, that's a CBN card, right?
Pardon?
Is that a CBN card?
That's a, yeah, that's a little CBN card. Okay. 40 on one side and 1200 on the other. So I do that, but again, I can do this whole piece and I don't need to sharpen this. I can probably do several pieces in the sharp cap. They just don't get dull that quickly.
Brian, have you changed that angle from the D-way angle?
Slightly. Just slightly.
Any particular reason?
I use a grinder that has a table on it that's set with little grooves. It's the one by Woodturners Wonders. The Kodiak system. I used to use the Wolverine system, but I really like the Kodiak system. And so I've now got my table set up for every tool in my shop. So I can just go to that setting, click it in, and sharpen it. And it didn't happen to be exactly like the D-Way. So you can actually see on this that I'm catching up with where it was, because it's about 3/4 my way and 1/4 their way. And the tool works just fine. So that's how I sharpen it when I do sharpen it. In between, I just hone it a little bit and it's fine. These beads, again, they're just a little bit high. It's real easy to go back in. You don't want to chase it too far in, because if one of these beads is considerably lower than the others, you just don't have a nice feel on your beaded top. But you don't. Sometimes I've just made a mistake and done that. Probably somebody looking at it wouldn't know it, but I know it, and I don't like it when I don't think it's just right. So that's what I do. Now, I got 24 of these left, and you don't need to watch that unless you want to come up and watch it. But what I'd like to do is just have, Dick, are you going to be doing the show and tell? Look at a couple other pieces. I'll go ahead and continue with this beading, and shouldn't take too long. Go ahead, Dick.
So anyway, in my short time of wood turning, I learned that large things create a lot of dust, and a lot of that small things don't. So I decided to, this wine bottle isn't hollowed out all the way, but it's very easy. You just need these glasses plus some safety glasses that also are 2X. You can see what you're doing down here. And you just drill a hole down, and obviously it's on a larger piece of wood here. I don't think that's maple. I thought it was maple, but I don't think it is. And then you need to just turn a little cork in there. And then these little goblets have they're obviously pretty easy to turn. And I don't remember if I hollowed that out with a some kind of a drill, or if I just scooped them out. I don't remember. But then I put some captive rings on them, and that was kind of fun. And then the only other thing would be the little tray to put them on. And I think I probably had some black rimba left over for something and moved it on and turned that. That's all it is, really. It was a lot of fun to do, just to see if I could do it. And then I thought, I'm going to go back out and see if I can make them about half this size. That's my challenge, if I ever get caught up on the other thing. Very nice. My wife will raise your hand for you, so, all right.
This is one of my first times using a pressure pot and epoxy. And I had this piece of wood that, a lot of cracks in it, So I put it in the pressure pot, about 40 pounds left it overnight. Got it out, turned it. I was quite surprised. So each time I left a little epoxy ring on it on the bottom. And it was my surprise, came out pretty nice. I don't even know what type of wood it is. A piece I got here one day. And these are all the same piece of wood, I'll spin water. I made a little lid for it off the same piece. And this is ingrain turned, and this is tender. And it's a little bit, to me, it looks different. The same piece of wood, but it just has a different kind of look. And I think it turned out pretty nice.
Remember, I told you, if you don't raise your hand, she will for you.
Okay, I'll go up.
Come on, Dennis.
Dennis, finish up, Pete, you go next.
Okay. I saw Greg raise his hand back there too, but he's in the hole. This one is done with a process called a bowl from a board. I took the Baltic birch, 3/4 inch, made 3/4 by 3/4 strips. Then I glued black veneer in between each one. And you alternate each one as you're making your board. So you've got a top, and you see the green side, top, green side, all the way through. So you come with a 12 by 12 board. Then you create circles in the board with a compass. And then I take a parting tool and put it at about 45-degree angle. And you start cutting rings out of that board that you have made. Once you get done, you end up with, well, I've got 3 rings here. Actually, there was a 4th ring, which would have been the bottom. I chose to take a piece of walnut and use that for the bottom. And then I segmented walnut and made 4 rings in walnut and glued it all together and turned it, and that's what I came up with. And as you take these rings from the board, you flip them and twist them, and you can make your design that you end up with there, by lining everything up. Thank you, Dennis.
Mine are as small as the others. This is what you use scrap wood for. This is mesquite, that's mesquite, and this is mesquite, and this is sumac. So it's a way of, when you have scraps, instead of throwing them away, make something small out of them. It's a good way to handle it. Little ring. They aren't as small as those over there. You can actually drink out of this, if you don't like it. Right there.
My name's Greg Campbell. I've been turning one of the original members here since the early 80s. I just get scrap wood too. I haven't bought wood in 30 years. If you see Woodturners, they'll be glad to load your truck up. Give them $40. You just got $3 grand worth of bow blades in your truck, and they'll run you. This is Chinese Sasashi. The bottom's really prettier. What I do is do the outside shape, and then Sasashi is like eucalyptus, they cracks nasty. So I'll pack all the cracks with super glue and coffee grounds. I don't know if it's decaf or not, but anyway. It just welds, super glue and coffee ground just love each other. It weld that bolt together, and then that. I do turn on the heavy side, 1/4 inch plus. They call me lead bottom Campbell or doorstop Campbell, but I don't have a problem selling them. But like I said, there's so much good wood that they haul to the dump. Hopefully you find the guys before they do it. This was a piece of ironwood. It was bigger, but I kept cutting it down because I was just really getting into, I call it a larva or worm poop, and it's just flying. And some people, I'll leave it like that and just rugged stuff. And that this one still needs one more coat. That's probably been in the wood pile probably 20 years. And I just did this olive, and I just left the satin finish on it. Same thing, did the same thing, and then, all these cracks in here, and then, most of them had the bark on it, and then one of them was just smooth, so I just put thick super glue on there and sprinkle black coffee grounds on there to make it look like bark. And so, that's what I do, so, and then I do a lot of stonework in mine. If some are getting too big, like 1/4 inch, it's too much. I don't like to put stone in, it just gets too much to work and guide. So,
Come on down, you're the next contestant.
So, the thing, I want to show you, these are actually done by Willow Taylor. She's a member of the club as well. The pieces, can you guys hear me? Yeah. So, she's actually an administrator, and it really has progressed. This is actually a piece of mesquite, and just the finish on here, it's really beautiful. Finished it, hollowed out. The texture in there is really nice. Just beautiful piece here. This is actually a plate. She just made this a couple days ago, and even the texture, the smooth, it's really beautiful piece. This is her basically like a sketch ball. You can see that there, and it's all smooth out too. Beautiful stuff. But these are all made by Willow Taylor, and let me go ahead and go to mine. And I actually, I'm fairly new to resin, actually to wood turning too, so is Willow, but I like to use the resin. Other people kind of try to discourage me. This is actually the first resin bowl I made. It's out of olive wood. It's got that purple resin in there, use the pressure pot and all that. Just kind of a beautiful piece. It's actually my first piece, but really proud about it. Just that color, I just love that olive wood in there. I actually got the olive wood from a member in the club as well. He was going to take it back. He just didn't go because COVID, so he gave us a lot of that. So that's thank you.
We'll turn it back over to Brian then.
Well, they're setting up. How many are going to the symposium? Charge of the volunteers, symposium. So, go online and sign up for volunteers. How many do we have? We have Michael, we have Dave Madden, we have Dick Jones. Any other hands go out for the Chattanooga? Oh, there you go. Dennis. It's yeah.
You volunteer to get sense.
It turned out that I got 28 feet instead of 29. So my design is just going to have one less row in there. And a couple of other things that I didn't mention earlier, I almost always use hard maple. It beads really well. You don't really need to do anything with this to paint over it, where it would be very difficult with walnut, though it probably would finish very nicely. But I use it entirely. It's a pretty inexpensive wood, and you buy it in lumber. You can see that the inside is segmented. One other thing that I would recommend if you're going to do one of these is, unlike this bowl where my rings in the segmenting process are 3/4 of an inch tall, so I could use 3/4 inch lumber. I can buy 6/8 and 6/6 lumber in maple, and when I bead it, I try to make and paint it. I try to make as few seams as possible. And I hope that when I'm beading, my seams end up on a line that I've drawn for burning, but they don't always. But usually they get lost in the design. So that's one thing I would strongly recommend using hard maple. Okay, I've got all these, what?
You ever go to Spellman Hardwoods for your maple?
I haven't.
Yeah, because it's a lot cheaper. You can get cabinet makers
cutoff that they have and making their cabinet. You buy it real cheap. I got
Ah,
probably what would be maybe $150 worth for about $20.
wow,
You know,
that's fantastic. I'll have to try that. Say the name of it again?
Spellman Hardwoods. There, it's off Grand Avenue.
Off Grand Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Phil,
It's recommended, Pete just mentioned that, I don't know if I have it totally right, Spellman Hardwoods has hard maple cutoffs and stuff that are from cabinet makers that you can get hard maple very inexpensively. So that's a good thing. Okay, now I've got a beaded top. All my beads look, I see one that doesn't look perfectly round, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. I don't think anybody will be able to find it when it's painted. So I'm not going to go fix it. I got a few black lines that are still on there. But I took my fingernail and went over them, and they don't have a flat top. So they're just a shade lower. So the black stayed on. So I'm happy with this. Now, the other thing that I did at the end, after this last bead, I have a real sharp edge on one side. So D-Way makes this little V tool. Okay, sharpened the same way. And you can hold it up, put it in the groove, and then just round off that last side with this little tool. This works fantastic. I use it on the bottom of my pieces to put little rings, and if I'm doing spindle work, it's really great to go in and make decorations. So it's another great tool. I bought every one of the sizes that he makes. I bought them a couple of years ago. I maybe lost 1/8 of an inch in sharpening. So they last, once you got them, they'll last you forever. Now we have to index this thing. And this particular piece is indexed at, come on. How do you make the, oh, there we go. It's the index. Oh, I really did, you wouldn't have to. Good catch. Good catch. Actually, it felt really good, but I do use this little wire brush, and I just run it across here. Just if there's any fuzzies or anything, it'll take them off. And I will probably also, so I won't now, but I'll just use one of these pads. What are they called? Scotch-Brite pads. I think this is equivalent to like 4/0 steel wool. And if I go like that, I can just rub those lines off. And but I'll probably do that again. No, best to do it right now. Okay, one more line there. Okay, we're ready to index. I already went over the process of finding a wheel, an index wheel, and the one I'm going to use is this one. The third row in from the outside has 120 holes. So if I skip every other hole, I've got 60. And you just put that in behind your chuck. Now, I just learned that if you have a Nova lathe, I don't know why they did this, but when you put it up over that last edge, and you sandwich this between that edge and the chuck, it runs up against the end of the lathe here and it won't move.
You put a little spacer in there?
So you got to put it, you're going to have to put a little, I cut a little piece of paper, some of this stiff paper that I had, and I made a little ring. And I think it's going to be just enough to allow it to turn. I hope it does.
Dave is back up.
You sorry?
Dave is back up just in case.
Yes, we got another one here, so I can throw it on if I have to. You could also probably use one of those real thin little washers that they sometimes sell so that you can get your chuck off easier. I've got a couple of them, but I don't find that they work all that great. So I don't usually use them. Good deal. Okay. We're back on there securely. I also bought this little attachment you can put on the lathe back behind the, let's see here. It has this little knob on here that comes in and out. So it'll drop in the hole in the index wheel, and then you can just pull that out and go to the next one. And it makes it so it's real speedy to index. And you just put that on here like this.
There's a company called Alicia, I think it is, engineering,
Uh-huh.
and sells indexing wheels.
Yeah.
And it comes with a jig like that with that same thing.
Ah.
And it's magnetic and it sticks on the bedway.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it was like $100, I think, $110. I think it was called Alicia. Alicia? ALISIA or something.
Okay. As I said, this particular wheel has 6 rows of holes, and every row you can have many combinations of spokes that can come out of it. The other thing, you don't have to have that kind of a setup. For a while, I was just using this on this end, but then I decided to make a table that I can put in. I've already marked it for the center. And now I've got a table that I know when I use this pencil, it is right on the center point of my lathe. Again, little tricks. Make sure you get a round pencil, not one of those ones with 8 sides. Your lines don't come out the same. With a round one, you can turn it any which way and you're still okay. And then when you sharpen your pencil, try to make sure you're sharpening it even so that the point's in the middle. It doesn't seem like it makes much difference, and it doesn't when your lines are out here because they're probably 1/4 of an inch apart. But down here at the end, they're down to about 1/16 of an inch apart. And so it does make a difference. So you can just get a starting point on your wheel and just come in and draw a line across. Then, because this is the 120, I go 2 and draw my next line.
have a lot of patience.
You know, it goes a lot quicker when you're not talking about it and when you know where all your pieces are. I've never really considered myself a real patient person, but I guess it is putsy work. But a lot of wood turning can be kind of putsy. This is pretty easy because there's only 60 lines here. I made a large piece, vessel, and I had 92 beads, and I had 154 lines across. And on top of it, when I got down to the really narrow part of the vessel, 154 lines didn't look very good, so I had to design a transition point where the bottom could be at fewer spokes or lines than the top. Otherwise, they would have all come together and I couldn't have burned them that close together. So you play with it and you learn little tricks, but it's just really, this is kind of the boring part. And seeing that I have to do 60 of these, I thought it might be a good time to do another quick show and tell.
Okay, last month, we had a presentation on making magic wands. So these are some of the ones I made. This one is a maple handle with a warm, I call this part blade, if you want to see, not just. This one is a maple wand with bloodwood, purple heart handle. Thing is, it was turned on 2 centers. I just like these blades. I give them away at Halloween. In the house. Wow. I think it's pretty cool. Pardon me? Yeah, whatever I've got, just, the kids like it. This one again is a purple heart. It's a maple handle. Yeah, I think work for it. Pardon me? Make one work. They do work, absolutely. Okay, and it worked so well that I turned around and on me, so you couldn't poke somebody's eye out.
Are those your first ones you've ever done?
I will. No, it's like, they're experimental things for me. That's it. I make tools and then I have to try things with them. So it's wonderful when you want to try making something along spindle on 2 or 3 centers in your turning. I like making the magic wands because kids like them, but I have to find a way to make one different from the other. So that's the thing. Thank you.
I grow up, I want to be like Matt.
I'm working on the haircut.
His hair is growing back.
Yeah, mine's not, I still got little grandkids, so they make sure my hair doesn't go any further. Who wants to come up next? Oh, my wife put it at Cal.
I got a question.
Matt, he's got a question.
How would you texture?
I think I just took a burning pen.
You gonna have all those for us today, Brian? Burn all for us today.
I make a lot of bowls. And I try to do something different on this one. I made some slashes on the side with the Sorby texturing tool. And I'm trying to figure out how I can make the slashes go the other way, so you make them cross slashes. And I haven't figured that one out yet. So if anybody's got some advice, like just nice with people. Then I was playing around with some other design here and I made some coves, and then I took that little, I don't know even who makes it, that little beading or roughing tool. And I trimmed the ridges inside there. So probably have to go over here to see them good. I don't know if you can see them on the camera. This is not a mesquite. This is some dry, hard old mesquite. So, but it turns nice. That's about it.
Yeah. I've been taking the class, which has been fantastic. The people have been extremely patient. And so, turned this, was probably my third or fourth application. And we had a little bit of a challenge on the side. So I think, I don't know if it was Al or LaRue that said, well, maybe turn it into the design. So, learn a lot. All right. Thank you.
How about you tell us about yours? Come on, Chip. The President's Challenge this month was dyes and doing something, so Chip is went overboard on this one, so he can tell you all about it.
Okay, this is just a little piece of hardwood, and I saw some alcohol dyes on padlock and sent away for some green one. And I dyed this out. Here's the inside, comes out, the contrast is really nice. And that's all I can say about it. It's soaked in real good. Yeah, it's soaked in real good, and then I used a spray lacquer to make it nice and shiny.
Did you just sand that down where you wanted it, then dye it?
Yep. Probably 320.
I noticed that green was the most popular dye in there. I had mine for about 15 years. I happened to find, oh, hell, I'll use that.
I've got some other colors, but I didn't like them.
Okay, but you can mix green and red and get a nice color brown.
So I picked on Chip because Chip doesn't like to talk much, even though he did a demonstration here a couple of months ago. So it's good to get him up here because he said that's some nice stuff.
It's tough.
Oh, my wife's going over to the table. Who's she gonna pick on?
Oh, I'm ready when you are.
She said, "What'd you bring today?" I said, "Nothing."
Brian said he's ready.
Brian, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Didn't really take that long. And, I also, people sometimes get scared of it because they think it's too fussy or it takes too much patience, but I usually am doing this, and I've got a couple over there. I like to just turn wood too. And you don't want to go blind by all of this stuff. So you do it for a little while, then you go turn on a regular piece. Okay, the next thing is we got to burn the lines. Oh, helps not to have your wheel locked. I don't need this anymore, so we'll put this here. Tough to take that off, but I'll leave it there for now. Work the same way. Just bring them up on there. And you just need a little different, little stick on here that you can move up the line, and it's really easy to do. Okay. And the two best methods that I've found, one of course is just the wire. If you just hold in there.
What kind of wire is that, Brian?
Steel wire, yeah. I don't know.
Guitar string that work.
I got stainless steel walk wire. I had at home, and I went and bought a little galvanized steel wire. This one is 24 gauge, what I like the most, but it also is, it's thinner. So it burns way down in the valley, not the sides of the bead. You try not to burn the sides of the beads. And
Piano wire or
piano wire or guitar wire.
guitar wire.
Yeah. The faster you can get it done. The problem with the 24 gauge steel is that it periodically breaks on me. It's always a pleasant surprise. The other thing, just for safety's sake, you gotta mention it. Put a little piece of wood on each end, hold it like this. Because if it gets caught on anything, it gets in there, it could do really damage to you. You never want to put it around your finger. It's a good way to do an amputation, I think. Now, one of the dilemmas of doing round surfaces is that you get to the point where the wire doesn't fit nicely in the groove because the curve is too sharp. And the problem with that is that you kind of hold the wire like at an angle to get it in there, and then you burn one side of the bead. So what I've done is I take Formica and I put it through my drum sander and lift it down to 0.016. And so if you just buy the regular Formica, it's a little too wide and it burns too big of a hole in there. So you need to cut it down in size. And then you can just hold it in there. You can go straight in. It's still hard to get a really perfect burn on a circle like that. Well, that one's too thin. Want to get too wide, or you start burning the edge of the bead again. So you got to kind of move it around all the time. I'm going to have my tool rest over here so I can. Parts down here, it's not moving as fast. Takes a little longer to burn it.
Speed up on the lathe.
Pardon?
Turn the speed up on the lathe and then
You can speed it up a little bit, but I'm still doing okay, so. These are gonna be tricky here. Okay. So now we've got all the horizontal lines done. They've come out with very nice pins that you can put on your wood burner. They come in different sizes. This is an 8. And pass that around. And several different makers make them now. I happen to like this place called TJL. it just goes by PJL, and I'm not sure what that stands for. But he makes this particular wood burner. It's called an Optima. You can get an Optima 1 or an Optima 2. The Optima 1 just has one port, and an Optima 2 has 2, and that way you can have that. You can only run one pen at a time, but you can have one ready to go because they do get hot after a while and it starts to bother you, even with these cushions on there. And
Carvertools.com. Carvertools.com is
Carver Tools, yeah.
Carvertools.com.
And if you have any questions or anything, you can call him and he'll talk to you. In fact, if you talk to him, you better prepare for about 10, 15 minutes. Because he really talks to you. But
Do they sell just the pens technically?
he sells these pens too.
Yeah.
He makes the pens himself.
Yeah.
He and his son, he lives in Minnesota. And he's just a really nice guy. It's just, he talks a lot. And, but he gives you all kinds of pointers. If you ever have any trouble with a pen, he'll make it right. Also, you can take a look at this pen. This is the 3/16 pen. The other one I passed around was the 1/8 pen. If you take a look at the tip of that 3/16 and wiggle the two sides of it, you see the break in it?
You do. An Optima.
I was going along like crazy, burning on a piece, and all of a sudden it just stopped.
How are you?
And I couldn't figure out what the heck was wrong. I thought maybe my burner wasn't working right or something. And I called him and said, I got a pen that's not working. He says, well, look at the tip. And he didn't tell me to touch it. He told me to look at it. The tip was cracked, so it couldn't make a full circuit, but I couldn't see it, and I didn't know to look for it, so I missed it. But that was my fault. It might have been from pushing too hard on the dome, and it kept trying to separate. I don't know how it broke, but I think these are like $30 a piece, and he'll fix them for 15, put a new tip on it. But then the postage probably cost 15, so I just bought a new one. So I'm just using this one now. To be honest, all the other stuff really goes faster than it looks like today, once you have everything set up. This is the most time-consuming and the most boring part of the process. And that is, you've got to burn down all these lines. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this well. Another little dilemma. Anybody heard of, what do they call it? Essential primers. Anybody's heard of that? Anybody, when they drink a glass of water, when they bring it up here, their hand starts to shake like that? Yeah. Well, about a month ago, I started having trouble drinking out of a glass. And I'm hoping like the Dickens that it doesn't work its way down to my working area. But right now, I just steady one hand with the other. And you go straight down on these beads. And the first time you do it, you're going to be able to tell which beads aren't perfectly round. And you'll remember it so that you can figure out how to compensate for it when you go over it again. But you just keep on going down these beads, if you aren't perfectly square, you can, instead of just touching the bead, you can kind of go around like this. And it often makes it round where you're burning. You also have to work to a point where you know what heat setting. I don't always like to sit in my garage doing this. I like to do it in the house. But my wife has super sensitive smell. And so I've got to make sure that this is set. And just little differences in that dial make a big difference in the tip. You want it so that it'll burn it, but basically not create any smoke. And I'm just creating a very small amount right now. And I could probably get away with that in the house.
Well, we wanted to get away with it without setting the smoke alarm off.
Oh, I've never even come close to that, so. But you don't want it turned up anyway, because then you get a little sideburn on the burn, and you want to make it as crisp as you can. Now, again, when you start painting them, you can cover up a lot of sins that you find, and you find that when you do this beading, because you're touching every single bead, and you can tell whether it's round. Actually, I'm doing pretty darn good right now. I had a couple at the top that were just a little bit off. And I made it through one row. What's 29 times 60?
28.
Now, when I'm doing 150 or 120 of these around a piece, what I usually do is I go every other row, because sometimes my pencil lines are not perfect. And when I go every other bead, I can come back and center it with my eye rather than using the line when I'm just a little bit off. So it's just another tip to not try to do every one. When I'm doing this, I also I'll say, okay, I can reach 8 of them without moving my hand here. So I'll just do 8. Got one more in there this time. And then I can just move along like this, and I don't have to move the piece. It just makes the whole process faster. But it's really burning them quite nicely right now.
How much time do you have in a piece like this?
In
The one that you do on next.
this one here,
Start to finish.
3 months?
no. You have to remember it's segmented also. So I had to cut the pieces on the table saw and then glue them together, wait for the glue to dry, so it's hard to time it. And then you glue your rings together. And then you're turning actually as you're gluing rings on. I glue 2 or 3 rings on and I turn. And I leave myself a lot of room on both sides so I clean up any problem. But so I don't know, I probably from start to finish, I might have, if I took out all the wait time, maybe 2-3 days.
Wow.
But I've gotten, not your first one. I can do my segments with my jig and everything really very quickly. I've got it down so they're accurate, so I can put them all together in a ring and put a hose clamp around them, and they're all perfect. So I don't have to do half rings. Every little thing you can do to make it so you only have to do it once just saves you a lot of time. And so, in fact, on this one, I was trying to go quick, so I made the 3 rings at the very end, all the same thickness, and I thought I can get my curve in there. And I was wrong. I had to take 1 ring off, so I had to use my parting tool, take the ring off, make another ring quick. But even with that mistake, I still think got caught up in a half hour. And I pushed my glue drying, so I wait about an hour, and then I can run them through the drum sander. Like I said, this part right here is the most time consuming. But I've got it down so I can move pretty quickly.
Brian, can we take about a 5-minute bathroom break?
I could do that. If I wanted to. You guys go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and I'm gonna do a few more of these. And then we'll talk about painting.
Can anybody hear me out there?
I can hear you.
I can hear you. Okay. Oh, and I'm on the screen. All right, thank you.
You have 1 kid.
So Greg Campbell is talking away about this piece right here.
Oh, I see. Yeah. You could, yeah. See, that's
These two beads of courage here are by Bill McDonald. So he's been making them every month for the beads of courage, which will be turned in October. Let me scoot over here real quick. So there's the raffle wood that's gonna happen. And I'm gonna scooch over here real quick to see what Brian was doing. So. This is a close-up of the wheel he was using. Here is a close-up of his beading he's doing. Here's some of the samples. And then this is the tools that he was showing earlier. So. And there's Brian. Now, I am done with show and tell Instant Gallery, and Brian will be back in just a minute to finish up his presentation.
I'm a very big investor in scalpel, and they come in all different shapes. You get them on eBay, or I think I got mine on eBay, and I buy 100 of them. A package usually over 100. Because I like them really sharp. They come in these little individually packed, and I think 100 of them are $10 or $15 at the most. And they just come in really handy, because if I make one of my burns a little bit too wide, I could just come in here and shave off a little of the black. Okay. I'll be showing you the same thing when you're painting. It's easy to make a mistake, and you've got to figure out ways of covering up. Also, I might find one of these beads. I might have picked my tool up and I have a little secondary groove. I can just come and shave off a little teeny bit of that wood. And that makes all the difference. Now, the other thing that I do periodically, I had them here at the last meeting, but I do some pieces where they're white, black, and gray. Well, black pens are easy to get. Gray pens are pretty easy to get, but white pens are a pain. In order to make their ink in their pens solid enough to show up in white, they have a lot of solids in them. And when you paint them on, they sometimes look kind of lumpy and crappy. So what I've done is before I burn or put my index marks on here, I dye it. I mean, I bleach it, and I bleach the heck out of it. I bleach it 3 or 4 times.
What are you using for bleach?
There's a product called Daily, D-A-L-E-Y. You get it on. Yeah, it's on my list there.
Yeah,
You can get it on Amazon. They charge you like $20, and then because of it, what it is, they charge you another $20 for shipping it. It's a little outrageous, but it goes a long ways. And you mix it up, a part A and a part B, and 50-50 for your first coat. Let it sit for 3 or 4 hours, and man, you're really surprised, even on maple, how much whiter it is. But I then put on another coat, and then I put on a third coat of real strong, and because I don't want it just to turn white. I want it to turn white fairly deep. If you just put on one coat, it'll look white, but it'll just be a skim coat. And then if you make a mistake when you're painting it, and you're using the white as one of your colors, so when you come back and you put a little blue on top of it, well, you've got to use a scalpel and kind of scrape it off, and then you can scrape through the bleach. So I want the bleach to go deep into the wood.
Is that only when you do a piece that you're gonna have white?
Well, I don't bleach it unless I'm going to use
White?
the white.
Okay.
Otherwise, don't bleach them. I mean, it's an added little expense and it,
But you still use the white pen on top of, after the bleaching?
I don't have a white square in here.
Right. So you don't have to
I
worry
don't
about it.
use white.
But
once
if you're gonna do white and you bleached your piece, do you still use the white pen
No,
afterwards on top?
then I just leave that one
Okay.
plain. Okay, now, pens, that's the next step.
You have one or two.
I got a few hundred. But there's two kinds of pens. The main pen is called a Pitt, or it's made by Faber-Castell, and it's called a Pitt Artist Pen. And they're India ink pens. And really, they're the only kind I'd recommend. Well, there's another one that's pigmented, and that's the Micron pen. But the variety of colors isn't as great, and the colors aren't as subtle. They're more blue, green, or yellow. But they do. The thing about these pens is they dry pretty much on the surface. They don't sink in like an alcohol-based pen, which is like a Sharpie. There's a lot of them. They're a little cheaper, but once you put them on, you just have a dickens of a time getting them off if you make a mistake, because they immediately soak deep into the wood. And it's really a pain. They're also not color fast. So if you have them, you know, in the light or in the sun over years, they'll fade. These are museum quality pens. They color fast, pH balanced. They don't fade over time. And the Faber-Castell comes in a variety of tips. They all come in this one called brush tip. Let's see here. Okay. Can you?
Oh, we can.
Yeah, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Oh, perfect. Okay, so that's called the brush tip. Great for doing the tops of your beads, or when you've got multiple beads that you have a lot of room, but they're not precise. And unless you can push them down into the valley of the beads, it's hard to do that when you're doing a single bead of that color. So they make other beads like this one. See the tip on that? It's really fine, and they make even a finer tip. So I usually, let me see what color I used orange. Well, I used blue too. Okay, so.
You said that lays on the surface. If you make a mistake, can you scrape it off?
Yeah, I can scrape it off with the scalpel, or if I catch it right away, I can just take the edge and scrape it off. And that is really helpful, because you make mistakes no matter how long you've been doing it. And if you can just come in, pardon?
Black, is it black in you?
Is it?
Black.
They're all colors.
The pens come in all colors. Oh, they're all India ink, but they're different colors of India ink. You can buy bottled India ink in all different colors. They've just put it in their pens. And now they don't have a huge palette. There's probably 10 colors that you got a choice of. So you can't be real subtle in what you want to do. Now, there's some guys that are doing this that are doing basket illusion. In fact, they started the basket illusion technique, and they choose to use colors that are predominantly identical to what Native Americans did on their baskets. And this company makes those subtle colors. They usually used a brown, which was an easy dye for the Native Americans to make. They had a kind of a sepia, it's a color kind of like orange, but it's not quite as orange. It's a little more brown. They call it sanguine, and they make a sanguine pen. Of course, black, which I didn't happen to use in this, but in a couple of the other designs. Oh, I did use black. Oh, boy, I'm glad I looked. That's not the one I'm putting on this. I'm putting this design. Here, I'm going to put some black highlights in there. So anyway, I want to make sure I'm going to be doing this on the right squares. But it's now painting time. And I don't have any blue in there. Oh, these pens wear down after a while, long before the ink runs out. So if you could keep that tip nice and sharp like that, these would last forever. But because you're going over a pretty rough surface, they wear down quicker than other colors. Let me just, I got a lot of pins in there. Here's your orange pins. I got a pretty good, I don't know if you're showing tip again, but that orange tip is not worn down, but I just went through these and threw out, well, I don't know if you can see that one, but it's mushed at the tip, it's mushed out a lot. So it's great for doing in these orange areas where you don't have to be very precise and you can just slop off on the paint. But you don't want to use it on the edges. You want to use a really nice tip. So I'm going to.
What do those pens run?
They run about $3.50 a piece. So they're the biggest investment. But I've done a lot of pieces with these pens.
When you buy
I buy them from Blick Art Supply. They have one over at ASU, but I do it online. And they may be able to get them a little cheaper if you buy them in packs of 10. But that's a $30 investment for one color.
So Brian, you got a piece, you have two pieces in the Mesa Arts Center Contemporary Art Show, right?
I do.
What prices do you have on those pieces?
$2,200.
Right.
So if I can sell one, I can pay for this stuff. But after I pay for all this stuff, I work for free. So yeah, I'll sell. I got an order, believe it or not, on Etsy. I had a bunch of my pieces, and somebody bought 3 of them, $3,800. I love those people, but I see them only rarely. And but I have sold a few, and I'm going to be at a show in November called Hidden in the Hills. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's a lot of artists who live out in the north side of Scottsdale, where there's a lot of wealthy people. They open their galleries for 2 weekends in a row, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they can have guest artists. And I got to be a guest artist of one of the people, and I have her whole garage. And it's a couple $1 million home. So the garage is really nice. They have 2 Teslas, so there's no oil on the floor. And they're cleaning it all out for me so I can put all these things out. And I'm busy making pedestals, so I sure hope I can sell some of them, because I got an awful lot of them at home. Anyway, I know that my first 2 rows on this design, which is going to be the best way to show that.
It's that camera up there.
It's that camera, okay. The orange is my biggest color, so I'm going to do that today because I don't want to screw this up. I've got too much time in it. So it's 3 wide.
Just do the center one.
And it goes all the way from top to bottom. But the first 2 rows, the first one is I'm leaving natural because it's going to be on this, and this will be darker once I put a finish on it. And I want there to be a contrast immediately. So my first row, I'm going to keep light color. I could have bleached it and made it white, but I didn't want to. So it's going to be this lightest color of tan, and then will be a dark one. So hopefully that light strip and then a dark one will catch the eye and immediately see that this is different. I try to think of all of those things when I'm putting a design together. So I know I don't want any on my first 2 beads. So I can come in here and in my 3 beads, even this blunt tipped pen can pretty easily take that orange color. And as you can see, you don't have to be a precise artist to do that, but you want to make sure that they're all colored. And because this tip is mushed, I'll only use it in these areas where I don't have to worry about the precision. I just want to get color laid down. Now, if I come over, when I'm in a hurry, I come over that line a little bit, then I'll have to come over with my scalpel and just kind of peel it off and then get moving again. On this edge, I can use the really fine tip pen, and I can get right up to that black line and get a nice sharp color change right in there. I don't like to use it for the whole bead because you're having to puff too much. So I might come over and just do that edge on some beads. That bead right there is a little higher than the rest. Just noticed it, but you won't be able to tell it. It also is good if you're coming up and right in here, I'm going to have plain colored bead, then a dark brown bead. And I got to get down in that groove with the orange. It's hard with the brush tip. I also have some foam hard foam that I've saved from packaging, and I make dips in it so I can set these things in there and not have to worry about them slipping around.
I think where they use like bean bags.
Yeah, beanbag would be great. They have, I've got one of those things that you can buy that's silicone. The smock works really good. Anything. Now with these, you can just come in from the side and get right down in the bottom of that bead.
Brian, can you tilt it towards the camera so they can see it?
Can I what?
Tilt it towards this camera.
I'm sorry. Can you see that better? Okay.
Make sure you paint it like that, sir.
So you'll just keep, I'll just do the bottom edges down in the groove, and then I can come back. Here's a better, no, that's the same old pushed up pin. Then I can come back and fill these in real quick. And up here, I've already done it toward the edge. So things move along quite well, particularly on these areas where you don't have, where everything is solid.
And then they're 3/16 beads instead.
And they're 3/16 inch beads instead of 1/8 inch beads. And that makes a really big difference. You'll use the real fine point a lot more when you do 1/8 inch beads. And I'm going to be interested to see if I like it as much with 3/16. I think it will, but you never know. Now the other tip I would give is, here's my brown. They call it dark sepia, and I've got a fair amount of brown on there. So what I often will do is I'll look at my design and I'll come over and I'll just put a little brown dot on each of these. Okay, it goes out 3, 1, 2, 3. So I'm out. My design has my dark going out 3 from the orange, and then all of these are brown. So if I just put a little dot on all the brown ones before I even start painting, if I make a mistake, I can come back with my scalpel and I can just whisk off that little dot. And I strongly recommend that you do that. It'll save you countless mistakes. What else can I tell you? There's a little secret on these pins that are blunted like this. You don't have to throw that pen away, because if you take a little pliers, you can pull that out. I've already done that because this end is also blunt. So you can get 2 tips for the price of 1. They don't tell you that anywhere in any of their information, but those slip out nicely, and you can just put another new one, the other side in. Again, like I say, the tips are going to run out before you ever run out of ink.
Can you sharpen them, or?
I've tried different ways of doing that, and it doesn't work very good. But I try to get as much life as I can. So I may come in with the sharp wire cutoff part of this brush, and I may try to trim that tip up a little bit. But it's hard, and it's never going to be nice and pointed. But I can, even the scalpel you can try. But they're still good for those large areas. So keep them. The other thing is we live in Arizona, and Arizona plays havoc on these pens. I keep the lid on them. I put them in plastic bags. But if I wait a couple months, I'll come out and the darn thing, this one's okay. But it'll dry up on me. And on these, there is no way to change it. I've soaked them in alcohol, I've soaked them in water. Sometimes I get a little bit more life out of them, but most of the time not. And so it's just, pardon?
You're storing them on their sides, right?
You store it
You
laying
don't store
down?
them up and down, you store them on their, flat on their sides.
When I paint?
No.
When I store, yeah, store them sideways. Don't store them like this for sure, because all the ink runs down to the bottom here. And even this way isn't great.
Would it help to keep them in a refrigerator?
That's interesting.
Your wife might
The
be upset if you
interesting,
put all that in the refrigerator.
isn't the refrigerator a real dry climate?
Yeah, it kind of dries.
Might be worse. I don't know. I haven't tried it, Pete, but take dry ones and try anything you can. The more life you can get out of them, the better. Just to show you this other pen.
He said he's tried it.
This one is their 0.8, and it looks pretty fine. But it's actually too fat to get down in the grooves, particularly on an 1/8" bead. So you can use it to color the top of the beads, but you really can't use it. But they do make, here's a 0.1. That one is really sharp. But again, it doesn't come in as many colors and they don't match. You can't switch. If you're going to do blue, you got to do all your blue with this kind of pen because they won't match up. I don't know what more to tell you about this other than when you get a design, go put the little dots on it. It'll save you tons of time. I find that green is the most difficult color I have to go over it 2 or 3 coats before I get a pretty good green. All the others, basically one time over and that's it. But green is just difficult.
Now, is that,
But you need
software, does the software do your coloring too, or you color that?
Oh, yeah, this is not the exact color of the pens.
But I mean, does it give you your,
Yeah.
whatever color you want?
The software I'm using does that. And I'm sure there's other brands of the software, but I'm not really great with computers. And I've just got it to where I know how to do the color. And
That's done with Adobe.
it's Adobe Illustrator, but I don't know how to use the rest of Illustrator. And I actually had to take an online lesson to learn how to do this. But now that it's all set up for that, I just hope it never leaves because, yeah, I'll be frustrated. But you can certainly just print out a grid and use your pens, or use a color crayon, anything. But if you decide you want to change color, then it's a pain in the butt again. So, and you can get these designs. I take other pottery I see, and I see a particular pattern I like, I'll save it. And then I'll put that pattern into another one. I don't want to copy the whole thing because somebody will see it and I'll get caught. And that's called plagiarism. So, but if I like a certain group of things, I'll save it and then I'll put them all together in a different way. But try not to copy other people's designs unless they've said it's okay. Quite frankly, I don't care if anybody copies my design. More power to them. Some other people put on their website, please don't copy my design. So I don't. But there's some really other great basket weave folks. There's also another guy who uses his pen mark more as part of his design. So he might take the brown part here, and instead of painting it brown, he'll put 2 more burn marks in between each one, but only in the area where the brown is. So the burn marks become part of the design. He's on Instagram. He makes really beautiful stuff. But he doesn't do it on the lathe. He's got and he doesn't use a pen like this. He puts it on a stand he's built at home where he can put his piece on there, and he has his burning pen in a jig kind of like this one that he's made out of a really hard material, heavy material down here, and his pen is fixed in this and sticking out, and then he takes the pen and goes like that while he doesn't have to have the step of an index wheel. But he also doesn't burn down to the bottom of the valleys like this burn is. So it's a trade-off. I've tried it, but I just don't like it very much. And I end up spending just as much time, but he's got it down to where he can burn really quickly across the piece. Everybody has their way of doing things. And there's not a right way, or probably not even a better way. It's just another way. And you got to pick out the way that you want to do it. And then I recommend sticking with it because you can build up speed. And like everybody has noticed, these are time consuming. And the more ways you can build up speed, the less hours you have into it. And, that's probably a good thing, because particularly if you're trying to sell them. I'm fortunate in that I don't have to make a living at it. I don't know how people would make a living at it. And most of the people who do it aren't making a living at it, but they're great artists. And that's okay too. If I don't sell things on the foothills, I'll give them to my kids for Christmas presents. And until their house is as filled up as mine. This will be my 888th piece. So I number every piece on the bottom, and I've got a photo of every piece starting with 1. So that's just me.
So they're all Basketweave?
Pardon?
They're all Basketweave?
They're all, no, any piece, those are all numbered over there. Every piece has got a number.
How long have you been doing this?
I started turning 10 years ago. And I came here that year and started watching. A guy from Tucson came here and showed his basket weave technique. And I scared the hell out of me. I didn't want to do it. And I didn't do it for a couple of years. And then I watched a couple more videos on eBay, and I said, heck with it. I'm going to give it a try. I love it. And now I'm trying to figure out other ways of using the technique. So I feel like these are a little different than what you typically see in the basket weave. It's not a basket. I don't try to make the edges of my basket weave look like, you know, overlapping and everything. But it's too putsy for me. But the guys who do that, they can make it look just like a basket. It's amazing. More power to them, you know.
Dale does some nice little basket weave things.
Yeah, Dale does this quite often, and he does a great job. So I encourage you to give it a try. There's not a big investment in tools. You know, you don't have to be a fantastic turner. You don't have to try to make things overlap. I could take one of my regular vessels over there and just put some beads in it. And you don't have to use segmenting, but most of the people who do it with segmenting. One reason is that you can get the grain running all the same direction when you're segmenting. And you don't have to deal with any end grain, except for maybe a little bit on the bottom or the top of your piece. And that makes, when you're painting, end grain's going to paint a little different than side grain. And you have to remember all those things. So I like to use segmented, but I like segmented. So let's see. I think I've covered the waterfront. Again, Woodturners started this basket illusion back, I don't know, about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. There was a really great guy. God. Cindy Drozda used to be a couple. And, yes. Say his name again? Bittman, right?
Yeah. And
Nittman with an N. He made some beautiful platters.
Brian, do you ever stagger your radio lines?
Stagger them.
Yeah, stagger them so that like the segmenting look that you have, but it would be beading that is staggered.
I haven't ever tried that. It's worth a try. I've just never tried it. When people walk up to it, they say, how'd you get those little beads all in there? You know, I mean, they think they're really beads. And you try to explain, no, the wood is actually cut away. And this is the little bead, we call them a bead as a wood turner. And they have a hard time picturing it.
just tell them how long it takes you to string each reed.
I'm sorry.
Just tell them it takes you an hour and a half to string each reed.
Each bead, yeah, it's taken forever. But Nittman did beautiful platters. There's another fella that does a lot of them, and he's one of the demonstrators on the circuit. God, what's his name? Pardon?
Myers.
Yes, Myers. He does beautiful work. Lots of nice pieces. There's just a lot of nice stuff out there. But mainly they were vessels and platters. And so back before I ever became a woodturner, I used to make mobiles. And I'd bring them to a gallery and they'd say, they look too much like Alexander Calder. And, you know, it frustrated me because they were different than Alexander Calder's. And he made so darn many mobiles and he invented them. So it's hard not to have a mobile that doesn't look Calderesque. So I had to try to figure out, well, how can I make a mobile? Because I like making mobiles that don't look Calderesque, but also don't look like little fish over a baby's crib. You know, I didn't want them to look like a toy. So I started making little rings. segmented rings. And I did that for a while, and at least my elements on the end of my mobiles didn't look like Calders. And then I had a little problem in that I was making a single segmented ring, and I got a call, and somebody said, well, one of your rings broke at the seam. Well, you know, particularly when you send them to Minnesota, when you made them in Arizona, they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable if it's a single ring. So then I had to go back and make my rings thinner and glue two rings together in a brick-laid fashion so that they couldn't break. And then I started getting nervous that other people might have that same problem. And, you know, they bought them from me. So there's a lot of things to think about, and a lot of things to think about if you're going to sell them, because people have an expectation that they're going to be around for a while. And I don't blame them. But anyway, that's how you do basket of illusion. It's the same whether it's a platter, whether it's a bowl, or whether you try some new things. And I'm going to try doing some as my mobile elements and to see how that looks. All of the things that we do as woodturners, you can always build on it and try something a little different. And I'll probably end up making that one sit like that when I'm all done.
Be sure to bring it next month or when you're done with it.
I'll bring it, yeah, yeah, I'll bring it. It'll be done by next month.
We could use it for 50-50 run.
Pardon? Give it away in the 50. Okay. Well, you know, you get them in, you got to do something with them after a while, so.
What have you done with the two that you brought last month?
They're on my mantle.
The one paper spectacular.
Along with about 15 other ones. They don't sell as fast as something for $60, you know. But you can sell them, and
You put them in galleries? Because the gallery is a better place to.
the gallery is a much better place.
The
But-
place you're going.
But if I think that I need $2,200 to pay for my time and materials, then I gotta sell them for 40, for 4,000, because the gallery's gonna take 50%. I am in a couple of galleries, but 50% is hard to swallow. But, you know, that person has to pay his rent. He has to have somebody there all day. He's got expenses too.
Well, you shouldn't have to be the one that pays all that, though.
Pardon?
Tell you shouldn't be the person that has to pay for all that.
Right, I shouldn't, who should?
Spread that around.
Spread that around. So it's hard.
You found that piece for $3,000. And the gallery sells it for $5,000. You're still getting your.
Yeah,
They're just sitting there, here.
right.
Let's see.
But the problem, you run into problems because if I go to an art fair where I can keep all the money, I might try to sell it for 3,000 instead of 6. But if somebody who paid 6 comes and sees them for 3, the gallery owner's going to get pissed off, you know? And so it's a real tight balancing act to find the right price. And I may think it's worth 3, but a gallery may have a hard time selling it for 6 because it's worth 3. It's just very difficult.
There are
And
galleries like the Sonoran Arts League has a gallery, they take 20%.
right,
And, but you have to work there.
I had 3 of them in there. I'm there.
Okay.
I went to the gallery. I've got a couple of pieces at the gallery at, it's called The Store at the Mesa Art Center. In fact, a piece came out in our mail to all members saying they were looking for woodturners to be in their shop. It's a co-op, and they take 35 or 30%, except for with the prices that have been increasing lately for packing materials and other things. We've now decided, even as a group of artists, that we have to charge ourselves 40%. Still less than 50.
How much do you have to work there?
I have to go there and demonstrate 1/2 day a month. But I can go wood burn, and they don't care whether, they don't have to sit through it. They just, people that come in the store are watching what you're doing. Or I'll paint a piece. Or I'll just sit there and talk about wood turning when people come in. But I got to work 1/2 day a month. Sonora Art League, you either work 2 or 3 days a month, or you pay them $25 per day that you don't choose to do that. And that's what I did. And they have little art shows every once in a while. I had 3 pieces of it.
Do they ever do,
None of them sold.
do they ever do beading with laser?
I'm sorry.
Do they ever do beading with laser?
I have never seen beading with laser,
It'd be hard to do.
but
CNC.
you could probably set up a laser so that when you spun, you could move the piece slowly and burn that line all the way around.
But the problem with laser is that lasers, most lasers have a flat bed. And when you start dealing with the difference in the distance of the material for the laser,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. I've tried doing gauntlets and
Yeah. There's just a whole lot of things. Another thing that I've done is I've had a little box, and I have a lid with a finial, and I just do 5 or 6 little rings around the top of it and put a little design in it. Look, people loved them. They sold right away at a craft store.
Yeah.
But you can sell them for, $40, not 2,200. And, but they're a great way to embellish a piece. Yeah, I think it's great fun. And, I like to, I don't sit still very easy. And, so even when I'm sitting still, I still have to be doing something. And even if I'm watching TV, I still have to be doing something. So I'll just be doodling, and I'll try to figure out a nice pattern. And one will pop out at me, and I can put it in a piece. So it was a great outlet. And you can't turn all the time. So you got to figure out other things to do with wood.
yeah, if you ever check your shipping charts, like they're predicting shipping is gonna go up 50% between
Yeah.
now and January 1st.
See, the gallery ships your stuff for you, and that's part of your 50%. Pretty soon they'll be charging
But
60%.
it's just like the airline tickets are going up.
Yeah.
Shipping's going up.
Everything's going up, and so people are gonna have to get used to paying more for wood.
Yeah, and tools.
Yeah,
Anything you buy online, it might cost $5 for the piece, and it's $25 shipping.
We need better monsoons.
well, I buy as much as I can on Amazon, and I'm more on Amazon Plus, but they've gone up too. But you can also return things so easy. I got, I bought 5 pens, they were the wrong color. Okay. I wanted to bring them back. I went to Whole Foods, said, here's the pens. They gave me a refund. Amazon, it's so easy to return. You can go to a Kohl and you don't have to wrap it. You just hand them the thing and they'll take it back and give you a refund.
So you can use 10 pins and then send them all back.
Well, you can't use them first. I suppose you could try. I'll bet somebody has. Okay, that's it. We have a 50-50 raffle here, and
And we got some wood to give away, so.
So everybody on Zoom, thank you very much and have a good week. And we
Okay,
will go to the raffle here.